السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Hello everyone. My name is Ilhami Turabi, and it's my pleasure to spend a few minutes talking about the conflict of interest in research. My outlines for this presentation is to give you a brief background about the conflict of interest and different forms of conflict of interest, and then um, when and who is going to commit the conflict of interest, and how can we manage conflict of interest. So, as a background, what is interest? Interest can be different things. For example, it can be financial and could be goal as a promotion that you want to catch, or it can be a value. For example, protecting an environment around you. Okay, so what is conflict of interest? Conflict of interest, it exists when professional judgment concerning a primary interest may be influenced by the secondary interest. So you have to give a judgment, and it should be professional for a specific interest, and it should be your primary interest. But sometimes we have other interests. We call it secondary. What are those primary interests? For example, the patient's welfare or the validity of research. It can be conflicted or contradicted sometimes, or it can be influenced by the different interests that, uh, as I mentioned in the interest section, it could be financial gain, it could be academic, it could be prestigious, it could be anything that the gain that you will have personally. When your personal or private interest interferes or appear to interfere with your official responsibilities, this is what we call conflict of interest. So moving to the second part in our outline, what are the different forms of conflict of interest? It could be financial, personal relationship that you want to gain. It could be political, it could be religious interest, and it could be different other things. Um, put it like that. If the interest is of personal concern to you, and this personal interest is going to conflict or influence the professional judgment, this is what we call conflict of interest. So when the conflict of interest can be committed and who is going to commit that. So in order to know when can we commit or the researcher can commit the conflict of interest, we have to think about the research process. It can occur simply at any stage of the research process. It can occur at the planning stage, implementation stage, in writing your paper, as in submitting and when reviewing your manuscript, or when you are editing or in the publication. Simply any stage of the research, there could be a conflict of interest. So, who can commit the conflict of interest, or who can involved in conflict of interest? Definitely, if you remember and put the different stages that persons who, or the stages that conflict of interest may be present, you can identify the persons. Researchers can commit, REC members, research ethical committees, or institutional review boards members, editors, reviewers, authors, and all of those people can commit conflict of interest. So how can we manage conflict of interest? A modern approach to conflict of interest policy seeks to strike balance by identifying the risks that may lead to conflict of interest and to prohibit unacceptable forms of private interest and to raise the awareness of circumstances in which conflict can arise and ensuring effective procedure to solve conflict of interest situations. Okay, so we talked about the general. What do we mean by conflict of interest? What are different types of conflict of interest, and who and when conflict of interest can be committed, and how can we manage conflict of interest. And the last thing, the take home message is conflict of interest is a very important issue that we have uh, to put a considerable attention to it when conducting your research. Uh, Conflict of interest can occur from anyone at any time during the research process, and it should be identified and dealt with properly. Properly. Okay, thank you so much for your listening. I hope that you learned something new.